Hi everyone and welcome aboard. Today I'm doing a little bit of mandala art, so I'm just breaking it up. I usually do watercolours, so something different today. I decided to record this in real time because I find that a lot of the times the videos are sped up and people don't understand the time that it takes to actually paint a mandala. This is only a small worry stone or a medium-sized worry stone, but it gives you a concept of how much time it actually does take to create a mandala of any size, really. I actually cast my own plaster worry stones, tea light holders, incense holders, propagation stations. I've got a whole range of them. But I've run out of worry stones, so that is why I'm recording this one today. When I use the moulds, I actually use Ultra Cow, which I find is the easiest to use and gives the best results. It's quite hard when it sets, but a common problem is bubbles in the mix, and I find that they're at a minimum with the Ultra Cow. It's winter here at the moment, so my moulds take a little bit longer to dry before I can paint them, but generally speaking, the casts actually dry quite quickly. In the summer, I actually put them out in the sun to dry, which is really helpful. Just a little bit of information about worry stones. They've been around for a very, very long time in various forms, and they are used as a form of meditation, really. These in particular are quite smooth, but the paint actually gives a slight texture to the stone. So when you hold it in your hand and rub your fingers over the stone, it's smooth but quite soothing because of the slight texture. A lot of people use them in their offices or at home. I have actually given one to a friend's daughter who suffers from autism, and she is very tactile and finds it very soothing at times to hold the stone in her hand. I actually do a smaller one because she's not that old. And the weight and the texture is soothing to her. So I've seen results firsthand. They also make a really nice decoration, obviously, but it's nice to have a decoration that's useful as well. So I'm using blues today for this worry stone. I usually choose the colours according to what I'm drawn to on the day, and today I was drawn to blues, which is really a lovely combination of colours here. And again, sorry about my voice. I've got a cold at the moment, so I'm a little bit husky. While I'm doing this voiceover, I'm on the couch with my dog, and he is having a belly rub, which he loves. As you can see, the paint that we use, well, for those who are new to mandala art, the paint that we use is quite thin compared to normal acrylic paint. I use Deco Art, which generally comes straight out of the tube as at the right texture. If it's too thick, you won't be able to get the smooth dots and swooshes, and it just makes life generally more difficult. You can thin it down, of course, but it's nice not to have to fiddle around with your paint too much. And Deco Art have an amazing range of colours. I don't get any kickbacks from them, but I can't sing their praises enough. Here I'm putting the micro dots in using a needle pointed tip on a plastic bottle. It makes it so much easier and quicker to do your micro dots, and it's a lot more accurate than using a dotting tool. The only thing is that you need to put a pin in the end of it when you're not using it, or the paint will dry up. But they are worth their weight in gold. It makes my life so much easier and quicker. So I'm trying to break my patterns up a little bit. I find that sometimes if I'm producing a lot of the same items, I I tend to just get stuck in a pattern and keep doing it. And I wanted to try to break it up slightly. There's only so much that you can do on a small item like this. But yeah, we don't want to be boring. And you can see that there's a curve on the worry stone, just a slight curve, but it's something to watch out for when you're doing your dots, because the paint can run down the curve. So when you're doing your dots, just keep an eye on them. You don't want to end up with a teardrop shape instead of a circle. And it's helpful as you lift the dotting tool up to actually lift it slightly upward, because by the time the paint actually runs to the centre, it's starting to dry a little. So the likelihood of it running down the stone is minimalised. And I got this micro dotting tool from the Happy Dotting Company here in Australia, and the micro end of it is absolutely amazing for doing tiny, tiny dots. I find that a lot of the tools, the smallest end isn't quite small enough for some projects. So yeah, this one is great. It doesn't usually have a curve on the end of it, but I think I opened a box with it at one stage and it bent. But it's still very usable. So you can see that by videoing this in real time, it gives you a concept of how slow the process can be, especially when we're doing the wall art mandalas. They do take a considerable amount of time. So when we usually watch a video and it's sped up, we think, oh, well, it's only taken 15 minutes or whatever. But this hasn't been edited. This is from start to finish. So yeah, it's a slow process, but so enjoyable and so soothing. And I find that the symmetry of the patterns is really pleasing. It satisfies my OCD. I'll be doing swooshes shortly, and in my classes, the students usually cringe at the thought of doing swooshes. I'm just getting a little bit ahead, but a good tip is to have your paint at the right consistency. If it's too thick, it's not going to work, because the paint will stick to the dotting tool and won't come off onto the project. So you're not going to get the result that you're looking for. A lot of them took a little while to completely understand what I was trying to teach them, but once they got the idea and the fact that the consistency is quite thin, they got great results. And when we do swooshes, to start with, don't do them too quickly, because people tend to panic and give the dotting tool a bit of a flick, hoping that the swoosh will happen. but you still have to give the paint time to get off of the tool and onto the project. So it's good just to practice doing it quite slowly in the beginning, and you'll end up getting a nice shape with a nice pointed end on it. Now, a lot of people, when they're painting worry stones or candle holders, tea light holders, like to go a little bit further down than what I do over the edge of the stone or candle holder. And that is quite a sharp curve, so it's quite awkward to paint. I like to go down as far as is comfortable, but not right down to the bottom. If people are purchasing my products, they're not going to get the patterns all the way down, but I don't think it detracts from the actual item. It's just something to bear in mind because it can be quite awkward on a curved surface like that. So if you're thinking that you have to go all the way down to the bottom of the project, just have another think, because it definitely doesn't detract from what you're painting. One of my next projects is going to be a wall art mandala, and they obviously I don't paint them for 8 hours a day, but they can take a week or more to complete, especially the larger ones. And we all know that we can't just paint for hours on end because our minds just can't concentrate for that long. But yeah, it's time consuming, but gee, at the end of it, it's just so worth it. I've only kept one mandala for myself so far, and I've been doing this for about 4 years now. Um, and that one's not going to be sold. It's my absolute favourite. But I've painted for friends and family, and they've all got mandalas on their walls, which is lovely. Now we're doing the swoosh. Now this paint is actually a bit thick. It wasn't really flowing off the dotting tool as it should, but I actually teach my students not to go back and backwards and keep dragging the paint up, but as you get more practiced at it, you can still get that nice shape, even though you're going back and dragging more paint up. Yeah, swooshes are daunting, and I had so much trouble with them when I first started doing mandala art. And then one day I just did it, and I guess it's like everything. The more that you practice, the more competent you become at whatever you're doing. I'll be doing some more mandala art videos over the next few days. I've been concentrating on watercolour lately because I've got a few exhibitions coming up, but I also love my mandala art because it's so soothing, as is watercolour, but for a different reason. And yes, so keep an eye out for more videos. I'm going to concentrate on beginner videos for a little while because everyone teaches differently, not saying anyone's right or anyone's wrong, but sometimes people can relate more to one person than another. So hopefully I'll be able to help you get underway with your mandala art, and you'll find it interesting and you'll learn something from my videos. Another thing that I say to my students when they're doing their projects, they say, oh, but I made a mistake. And, you know, everyone's going to notice. No, small mistakes, we only know they're there because we painted the project. And because there's so many dots and swooshes and mandala art is actually quite busy, people often don't notice the small mistakes unless they're actually going over the project with a fine-tooth comb. No one is going to notice if one dot is not quite round or one swoosh is a little bit wonky. So don't stress if things aren't absolutely perfect. In this worry stone, I can tell you where I made mistakes, but I'm guessing that you probably won't notice, and if you do, they really don't detract from the finished worry stone. Sorry, my voice is going. So I'm just finishing off with a white swoosh just to fill in the gap between the blue. I didn't want to go too overboard with the pattern because, as I said, it is quite a small item. And in the middle, I will put the gem just to make it look a little bit more sparkly. And as I said, being tactile, having that gem in the middle adds to the texture of the stone. Another tip too, when you're storing your paints, especially deco art, because they do come in a bottle with a flat lid, good to store them upside down. So store them sitting on their lids, because I find otherwise they do end up with this dry, stringy patch. So yeah, just a little tip. So there's the finished worry stone. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and just keep an eye out for my next video.